Welcome, everybody, to Two Guys on Politics. It is Friday, July 3rd, 2026, and this is season 5, episode 21. Two Guys on Politics is broadcast on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio and podcast and video and audio on YouTube at twoguysonpolitics.com. I'm proud to co-host with former Congressman Bill Lipinski as we rip through the issues every episode. This is a special broadcast because we both are going to wish everybody a happy 4th of July, this 250th anniversary of America. We're going to talk about that. So we'll start out talking about the 250th anniversary of America. Then we're going to talk about the political takeover of the celebration and the fact that the committee that was set up to plan all this 10 years ago seems to be absent from the planning. And it seems to have impacted the celebrations, at least from the Trump orchestrated celebrations. And then in the first segment, we're also going to talk a little bit about, are you shocked that the president reports that he earned nearly $2 billion during his first term in office as president? That's unheard of. In our second segment, we'll talk a little bit about Mayor Mamdani's political victory in many races there in New York, and the use of the term socialism and other terms. What do they mean? Politically versus reality, and how it does impact the politics. Then we'll switch over and ask the big question: is the Democratic Party leadership capable of leading America better than Trump? If Trump loses control of Congress, what does that mean? And finally, if we have time, we'll talk about the Ukraine and Russia war. It seems like nobody's focused on that. And the war and now no war between the U.S. and Iran. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll begin our discussion. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the next voice you hear is only been challenged by one other voice in the history of America, and that was Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his fireside chat. But Ray's communication on radio, TV, and in person is beginning to surpass the impact of Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Bill, I'll tell you, listen, happy 4th of July. Of course, we're taping the day before on July 3rd, but happy 4th of July nonetheless. It's kind of exciting, isn't it? 4th of July and the 250th anniversary.
Yes, it is very definitely. And I want to wish everyone a very, very happy and merry and enjoyable 4th of July. And I hope and pray that because we have an individual an individual that is president, that is disliked strongly by so many American citizens, that does not take the joy out of celebrating the 4th of July because he happens to be the president.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Bill, I have lost so many friends, people that were genuinely friends, over the fact that, I've criticized Trump and that they're like diehard Trumpers. And it's kind of surprising to me because instead of arguing issues, we argue about, why are you criticizing Trump? And I go, he's an elected official. We criticize elected officials all the time. Bill, how many times were you criticized when you were an alderman and in Congress, right?
Many, many times, no question about it.
And you still were friends with some of the people, most of the people, not all. I mean, some critics, would go too far and personal and everything. But today, it's almost like far more people go too far and take this personal. And you get into a debate about Trump, and everybody just gets really mad. It's like just shocking to me. I don't know how, but this 250th anniversary of America, this is a big deal.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Ro- Rome was around for 500 years, so before it collapsed. So we got a long way to go, a record to surpass, the Roman Empire. But 250 years, there's been controversy, there's been success. We seem to improve ourselves. We got rid of slavery. We tried to accommodate the Native Americans who were here when the settlers from Europe came and settled a lot of the places. And it seems like we've even addressed the issue of race a lot better than we have in the past. Although politics is just an ugly battlefield here in the country, 250 years after our political identity was declared independent.
Well, I think that we have been improving the country for all the citizens throughout the 250 years. We certainly weren't a perfect nation when we were founded. Maybe for that time and that place, we were pretty good, but we were very aspirational. We did want to create a place where people from all over the world could come, enjoy themselves, work hard, stay on their toes, and be successful beyond their wild imagination. And I believe that that has happened to many, many, many people. We still have some problems, but we're working on those. And I don't think there's any nation in the history of the world that has ever improved from the beginning each and every year for 250 years like we have.
It does come at I mean, there's so much to be proud of over 250 years.
Absolutely.
And there have been a lot of controversies over 250 years. But when we compare ourselves to other nations, every nation has problems. Other nations have had far more problems than we've had. I think we're one of the best when it comes to dealing with the problems. It's as if problems are part of politics and government. You just can't avoid it. So the fact that we have problems doesn't undermine us as a country. We acknowledge them, we deal with them. We have a constitution. When it's enforced properly, anybody can criticize and do whatever they want. They could protest, they could burn the flag. I know not everybody likes that, but the Constitution allows you to protest. And that is the essence of freedom, being able to, which is what this country is about. We left the control of a king in England to be free. That's what we fought for. And well, at least a certain segment of the world fought for freedom from English tyranny. But we still do have that freedom, and we are far better than. I don't know of any other country that's better than us.
There is no other country better than us. We're the greatest country in the history of the world. We're not perfect, but we're better than any other nation that has ever existed. I feel very bad, though, that we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the founding of this nation, and we have Donald Trump as president. Because you know, and I know, so many people in this country at the present time cannot stand President Trump. And I think that that is causing many people not to participate in celebrations of the 4th of July in the 250th anniversary of the founding of our republic. And I feel bad about that. I try to distance myself from our nation and from the president, whoever it might be, when we celebrate things, because you're going to find presidents you agree with, you're going to find presidents you disagree with. Unfortunately, the president we have at the present time, there's more people who disagree with him, and it's his personality primarily that people disagree with. I don't think anybody really wants to be his friend. Of course, I don't know, by the same token, if you're his friend, you might be able to make 1/10 as much money as he made last year because he might have some inside information to give you.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. But the way I look at it is that um, Trump has inserted himself as the problem. He has, and just the same way he puts his name on everything, he is putting his name on the 250th anniversary of our independence. And I think that's the problem. Now, you know, it has created a dampened effect because you're right. I don't see the enthusiasm in a national way that I would have expected we would have. I do see it individuals, individual countries are celebrating it, but they seem to want to distance themselves from the national celebration because it identifies with President Trump. And I blame President Trump. I have to blame him. I know that we get into this thing where we constantly criticize him, but he makes it easy to do that. He doesn't do anything to counter the criticism. He feeds it. He fuels it, and it's been really disappointing. I'm surprised he didn't name this President Trump's 250th anniversary of America. That's the only thing that surprises me about
You
this
mean he didn't?
celebration.
I just assumed that he had done that. When this country was founded, the only people who had the right to vote were white
Right,
male property owners.
right,
Now, 250 years later, according to President Trump, we even allow illegal aliens to come in, register to vote, and they can vote by mail, then they can vote in person. And, he might even think they might be able to vote over the phone. Those are the things that I think upset so many people that he thinks he's, you know, being supportive of our system. But so many of the things he says, really are denigrating to our system. I don't think we have anywhere near the fraudulent voting in this country that he continually says that we do. It's never been proven. I mean, he has said, and he still says today, he lost the election because he was cheated out of it. But there is not one scintilla of proof that has ever been put forward by anyone, proving that. Even his attorney general at the time said there was no
right,
fraud. Remember that?
right. Oh, yeah.
I
And he
mean, but he was
continues to say
telling,
that. He continues to make that accusation that the election was stolen from him 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago, when Biden won the election. And it's just terrible the way he attacks the former president. I don't know if you saw this past week. Joe Biden came out swinging, really calling Trump one of the worst presidents we've ever had, really going after him. That's the first time I've really heard Trump respond to all the negative attacks, the horrible things that that Trump has said about Biden. Now, I didn't like Biden's administration, but I just the level of the personal attacks
absolutely.
it just goes far beyond what I think is reason. But you're absolutely right. We've done a lot of things. Now, Trump did lose I think part of the problem is Trump takes everything to an extreme. He was against birthright citizenship. I think that there's a middle ground there that he should have approached to adjust it to only allow birthright citizenship for children of immigrants who are legally in this country visiting or that are, they have green cards.
Well, first of
Instead,
all, Ray, he should have tried to do it the legal way, and that is
yes,
to change the amendment, change the Constitution. He's not a king. He can't say we're going to get rid of birthright. Okay. You
right,
know, you have to do it the right way, but he
right.
does not choose to do it the right way. He just tries to do it the Trump way.
And I couldn't even support him. I think it should be adjusted. and defined better, because these problems we have today didn't exist when birthright was approved, under the Constitution. We never anticipated people illegally coming into this country just to have kids who would automatically become American citizens, who would then become the anchors to bring them into the system of our country without going through the process. It was like a shortcut. Come here, sneak into the country, have a baby, and suddenly you got your ticket to shortcut the system and become an American citizen. So, I mean, that's one example of how I think he's dampened and undermined the national celebration of the 250th anniversary of America. I'm anticipating, though, Bill, that that in 5 years we will have a much bigger and better celebration of American independence once he's out of office. And I think that there's this feeling among people that at least I've talked to that, yeah, we're going to 250. It's sad that we're going to miss this. We'll celebrate it, but it doesn't have the same enthusiasm as it might have if this nation were together instead of being so polarized and divided the way it is today.
Yes, I agree with you, Ray. Ray, I do not see you any longer on
Well,
the screen.
yeah, that's okay. I think your internet was just slightly having some issues, but I see you and it's recording.
Oh, okay.
Good. If I lose you, then I'm going to lose the recording. And just
Oh,
for our listeners, we're talking about the technical side of doing a podcast. And we'll take care of that. So the Trump State Fair, he started the State Fair celebration of the 250th anniversary on June 25th. Had you heard anything about that at all? I didn't. I didn't
not
hear anything.
not very much at all. But you have to remember the news media is not on his side. The news media is not going to publicize anything that's decent, that's good about Trump, or very little of it. I suppose if you watch Fox News, you probably got a lot of information. But I don't happen to watch Fox News because I don't think they give you a very honest uh, uh, opinion of the news. But
Well, well, I
I'm
understand your point. I understand your point on that, except even criticism of his plan. They, instead of ignoring it, they would have criticized it. So we would have heard something, but we didn't hear any. I'm just shocked that there's been a fair going on, and apparently not a lot of people have attended it. And it's supposed to be like a big deal. Some states were supposed to have pavilions, like the World Columbian Exposition in 1893, which they screwed up. It should have been 1892, the 400-year anniversary, right, of Columbus's discovery of America. Should have been 1492, but they couldn't get their data right, so they started the fair in 1493. It's not that things don't happen that cause things that we don't expect, but this one, the politicization that's overtaken this country, the divide, has really hurt us. And really, it's marred this 250th anniversary in a bad way because this should
well,
be a big deal.
I think what Trump has done is that he has created a very strong right wing in this country and a very strong left wing in this country,
Yeah,
thereby dividing us even further than we had been divided before. And the only way that we're ever going to come back together again is when he is gone, when he is out of office. I mean, I think we're divided worse today than we were when we were fighting a civil war.
yeah.
I mean, that was a terrible thing. It divided our nation. But I think we're at least as bad off as far as division goes now as we were then. And I personally believe we're worse off.
Bill, let me ask you a question. That's a good point about the Civil War. Do you think that the polarization and divide that exists today, it's been going on for, geez, almost a decade now since Trump was elected, and probably started before him. Um, we haven't turned to violence and civil war, but do you think that's a possibility that something like that could happen as a result of the hatred, and anger?
There are people I know, reasonable, rational people, who definitely believe we are headed for a violent civil war
Yeah,
in this country. I do not believe that, but I may be Pollyanna uh, because I'm always an optimist. I would hate to see that ever happen because it would be a tragedy not only for us, but it would be a tragedy for the world if a nation such as ours could wind up in this day and age having a civil war. And I don't even want to think about it, Ray, because it is just so upsetting to me that something like that could happen. But a lot of reasonable, rational people talk about that may be the case. I mean, this divide started really going back to Newt
right,
Gingrich when
right.
he was attacking Democrats in the House of Representatives back when I was there. And he was a phony to a certain extent because of the fact that uh, he was a real nice guy off the floor.
And he
But on the
personalized it, right? Isn't that what he did? He personalized the attacks.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's I agree with you, but I still am concerned that we are on the precipice, the edge of a civil war, because the more Trump is in power today. I think if we have a civil war, it'll be because of Trump's initiating some violence in some way by cracking down on his critics. He's already saying that the election was stolen from him. And I can only imagine what's going to happen in November when the election is stolen from him again. And he loses control of the House and even maybe loses control of the Senate. It'll put us in stagnation, I think. But I think that he's even talked and hinted about how he doesn't want to end his term, that if there's a war going on, he doesn't want to step down and leave America defenseless. And, it just boggles the mind to think that that's his interpretation of how this country deals with war. We've dealt with wars, world wars in the past, where we've changed administrations during the wars, and we continued to succeed and win. But he leaves this continued nagging feeling in my mind that he's going to do something if he loses control or power. And that's what scares me.
Well, uh, it scares me also, Ray, but hopefully that will not happen. I want to talk about for a minute this
Sure.
uh, the democratic socialist movement. Now, I'm
Well,
opposed to
let's
this.
wait. Let's wait till
Okay.
the next segment to do that. Let's
Okay.
just talk a minute about one more Trump thing. We'll lump all the Trump stuff in one segment here. I it's I am shocked this week when the news reported, based on filings from President Trump, that he earned nearly $2 billion during his first year as president from stock investments in cryptocurrency. That's, to me, there's like something wrong with that. It's upsetting to me if any other president had done this, I'd be saying the same thing. It's not just about Trump. But what happened? I mean, why hasn't that happened before? And why do you think it's happening now? When you're in Congress, can elected officials generate that much money for themselves without using their personal power to do that? How does this
Ray,
happen?
you know, I mean, I've said on a number of occasions that the president hit a new low by something that he did. Well, I'm hoping and praying that this latest one, the money situation that he has gotten in his first year in office as president, I hope this is the absolute bottom of the barrel, because I don't know what could happen that would even be worse than this. For an individual who had the high honor of being president of the United States to somehow manipulate things that he could make that kind of money in 1 year is incomprehensible to me.
It,
And all it does is further divide the people of this country.
can you imagine also that in this context, it's his wealth that he seems, his power and his wealth. Those are the two things he's focused on. That a foreign country would donate a $400 million plus airplane that is going to serve as Air Force One. First of all, just to set aside the idea that we should never accept a plane, that worth that much money from a foreign country. And by the way, Trump says that when he leaves office, he's taking the plane with him, and it's going to be part of his presidential library, which I can't imagine anybody wanting to go to. But the other thing is, how could we accept a 400,000 gift from a foreign country? I don't
Why would we
understand
accept
that. And why? Right. That's mind-boggling.
it? Uh, Ray,
I mean,
let's take a break.
it's too much, right? It's just too much. It's
I'm
not your
beginning to
fault,
get
Bill, or
ill.
my it's not your fault or my fault, Bill, that we get dragged into these negative discussions about an institution that on the 250th anniversary we should be celebrating. Because the one
Yes,
great thing about America was we did create a system that allows people to be free to express themselves and creates a government that responds to the people. And in my opinion, and probably yours too, I don't think that's what we're seeing in certain levels of our government. It is very depressing. But we
yep.
can't allow that to undermine our enthusiasm for this country and its 250th anniversary.
Remember, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom.
And I think that's what we're being. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about some more issues here at Two Guys on Politics. We'll be right back right after these messages. And welcome back to Two Guys on Politics. I'm Ray Hanania.
And I'm Bill Lipinski.
And we were
And
going to
we're here.
talk We were
Go
going to
ahead, Ray.
talk, Bill. We were going to talk about the New York Mayor Mamdani and the use of and his victory in New York in this recent election, and even the use of terms that are described like democratic socialism. He's been criticized for being a democratic socialist, and it's funny how it's defined in different ways depending on whether you support him or whether you oppose him. And it has had an impact. But he really, I mean, for example, his slate of candidates took out some very powerful people in New York. Do you think it's because New York has been changing, or is it because many New Yorkers are seeing that, his politics may benefit them? What do you think was behind the change
Well,
and
first,
his victory?
first of all, I want to say, you know, I don't like democratic socialists, okay? But getting back to Trump for a minute, I
Sure.
do not believe that it helps us in any way, shape, or form for our president to call democratic socialists communist. They
Right.
are not,
Right.
it's a far cry from democratic socialism to communism. But once again, Trump has had to call them that, which further divides us one more time. Now, as far as Mamdani goes, in New York, I don't think that there was any powerful congressman that was really defeated. Two of them were defeated, but I don't think either one of them had been there for, 10
Really
years.
long.
Now, the woman in Denver, Colorado, I actually served with her, and she was there for about 30 years, and she was a ranking member on a subcommittee, which gave her quite a bit of significance, quite a bit of importance. Uh, but in all honesty, the programs that she supported were very close to many of the programs that Mamdani's and his people support. She just didn't call herself a democratic socialist. So it's interesting. Her and the two in New York that were defeated, they were very progressive Democrats, and their philosophy is not much different. I think it's simply more a rebellion against incumbents than anything else at the present time. I think that's where the same thing happened in the New York legislature. I believe that there are 8 or 9 uh,
Local,
contested races between
right?
uh, Democrat, we'll say organization Democrats and Democratic Socialists. And I think that Democratic Socialists won almost every one of those races. But once again, most of those New York senators' philosophy, the things that they supported, are very close to what the Democratic Socialists support. So once again, to me, it's saying that incumbents are in very, very bad shape because people are so sick and tired of what is going on in Washington. They want to get rid of everybody that they can. And I think you're going to see a very, very significant turnover of Democrats and Republicans in the midterm elections. Uh, I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to get to that because, as I say, I just don't think that socialism could work because someone once said it's a very successful program as long as you get other people's money. But when you run
Right.
out of other people's money, it doesn't work out too well.
Now, and just the way I tried to listen to Mayor Zohan Mamdani, who won the election over a mayor who I really despised. I really loathed the former mayor because he was so uh, backed by one foreign country. This had been a mini Arab-Israeli war that was going on. Mamdani is not Arab, but he is Muslim, and he was born outside of this country in a Muslim nation. So it was kind of like a mini war, and I'm glad he won. Not so much because he was a great mayor, but because he silenced the guy who really was just, I thought, in my opinion, he was a traitor. But here's the other thing I was going to say. When they talk about socialism, I see like two definitions. The socialism that we grew up hearing about when in the 50s and 60s was associated with, in a way, with communism,
Absolutely.
and with the anti-American group that wanted to destroy democracy. The socialism that I see with Mamdani is, in fact, a different kind of socialism. It's a shame that it's the same word. If I had been Mamdani's consultant, I would have said, look, don't use the word socialism. Come up with something different. Because what he did was he wanted to tackle the high rents. He felt that there were a lot of people in society that were paying too high of rents who couldn't afford it. He wanted to tackle the cost of groceries and bring them down. I mean, these contradict the free market system, obviously, but when the cost of groceries go up so high, something needs to be done to, stop this rise. He wanted to support child care, to bring down the cost of child care and have government help families that needed help with child care. He wanted to improve public transportation and he wanted to expand the housing supply. Now, he calls that democratic socialism. But nobody, when they attack democratic socialism, and when they attack him, they don't attack those issues. They don't say that they're in favor of high rents or that the high cost of groceries or the fact that many people can't afford child care or that they don't support bad public transportation or a bad housing market. They don't say that. They just instead use the label. And I think that's part of the problem. In especially today, we name call. We don't talk about the issues. It's easy to brush off Mamdani as a democratic socialist and not talk about what he's trying to do because we have this in our heads. You know, I grew up, socialism was a bad thing. But when I see
Well,
the
socialism
socialism,
was equated to communism,
yes,
back
it was,
in
which
the
is
late
why Trump
40s.
attacked that. That's why Trump, as you pointed out, used the term communist,
Absolutely.
right? When he attacked them.
And I unfortunately believe that it is possible if he continues to do it and other Republicans pick up the same banner, that they might actually have a shot at holding on to the House of Representatives if they can continue to get away with calling Democrats, and it'll spread from the Democratic Socialists to all Democrats, calling them communist.
Right.
For the first time in ages, I really think the Republicans have a shot at hanging on to the House of Representatives if they can pull this off. Because amongst the older people, people such as us, socialism is still equated with communism.
Right.
And people have a very difficult time voting for someone who the President of the United States has called a communist. Once again, further dividing this country. Mamdani, he has got a terrific personality. He is as good a politician as I think I've ever run into. Now, I don't, support a number of the things that he wants to do, but he is very friendly, very outgoing, seems to be very compassionate. But some of and I can't really say that I know of anything that he has said about, the United States of America that I'm really upset with. But I
Right.
will tell you this, those three candidates that are associated with him in New York have said some very mean, nasty things about the United States of America. And so did the one that won in Denver. She said
Right.
some very nasty things. And I think that, he's getting painted with that brush also. And I don't think he has done that. But these candidates that he has supported, unfortunately, have said those kind of things.
Where is the Senator Joseph McCarthy to stand up and put a spear and knife into the rising corpse of communism and socialism from the 1940s and 50s, right? He created
Right.
a blacklist. He used these socialism and communism as words to destroy careers, not some in politics, but mostly in society. People in
I
Hollywood were
remember reading his
blacklisted.
book, The Fight for America by Joseph R. McCarthy.
Right. It isn't, we don't have a joke. I mean, I hate to always throw stuff on Trump because I don't even want to give him the credit. McCarthy was a very smart guy with the wrong issue, in my opinion. I don't view Trump as a very smart person. But who is the Joseph McCarthy today? Is there one that's driving this issue, or is it the opposite, where it's been reversed? Now it's the audience that's driving this issue.
I
As
think
you
it's the
point out,
audience that's
yeah,
spurred on by Trump. Uh, Joe McCarthy, his problem really was, as far as I'm concerned, and I read a lot about him, and I listened to the McCarthy hearings on television. He simply went about things in the wrong way. I think there was a lot of truth to what he had to say and what he said about certain people in the U.S. government. I
right,
really believe that it was the U.S. State Department that wound up selling out Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists, uh, allowing Mao and the communists to take over China. Uh, and that has become an enormous problem for us over the course of the years. He talked about that. I believe that he was right about that. But he went about it in the wrong way. He was almost another Trump, to be perfectly honest with you. Uh, I mean, he even went after the United States Army, that frankly was fresh from victory, in Europe, victory uh, in the Pacific. He made some very, very stupid decisions. He could have been very helpful to this country, but it didn't turn out that way because of the way he behaved.
Weren't they back in the 1940s? Wasn't there some populism for communism, before we got into a fight with the Russians, with the Soviets and the Chinese? There was a big communist American party here, and a lot of people thought that was the way to go. Um,
Absolutely.
but at the time, they were supporting countries that weren't clearly anti-American at the time, but like Russia, they were our ally during World War II. And then the true face of Stalin came out after World War II, and we found ourselves, fighting our very ally. The communists turned out to be a real threat, and so were the socialists. I mean, these terms. I would just want to go back to the use of these terms. I don't think people understand these terms, Bill. For example, like Trump attacked something called Antifa. Well, what's Antifa? Antifa is anti-fascism. And I don't know. I'm anti-fascist. I think fascism is bad. So I don't, they throw the term Antifa as an opposite to the term Proud Boys, which are the people that Trump supports, which is a very racist movement in this country. So we use these labels that cut across and jump the facts to tap into our perceptions of some of the worst things that we've had in our history. And that concerns me a lot. It says a lot about how, instead of being educated about today's political fight, we have a society that's driven by emotion, not facts or education.
Well, unfortunately, that is true to a great degree, Ray. Uh, I think a lot of people are trying to undo that in this country, but then we have other people who like to play on emotions because they think they can be more successful by doing that. Uh, I don't want to go down the road we went down in the first half of this program. I
We're
don't want
trying
to
to
talk
find a
about Trump.
positive road, right? We're trying to find a positive road. But I
I
asked
think
where, Mhm. Go ahead.
a positive note is this country has been together for 250 years. Okay. We fought a civil war. We're still together in spite of that. There have been many political divides in this country in who was to blame for it. The Great Depression created a lot of
Economy.
interest in communism for a lot of
Yes.
people. A lot of people joined the United States Party, Communist Party. Okay. They weren't against this country. They were looking for a new way, for this country to operate so we wouldn't have any more depressions. Uh, so, I mean, we are not in the greatest place now, but
Right.
hopefully soon we will be, when we can actually once again have our political parties work across lines,
But
to do
you
what is
pointed,
the American people. As I have said on other occasions recently, we don't want to elect any more Democrats, any more Republicans, any more liberals, any more conservatives, any more Democratic socialists, any more, right wingers. We want to elect Americans to public office because Americans can help heal the wounds of this country and make this country even a greater place.
you touched on what I think is the core problem issue in this country. It's the economy. It's the economy, stupid. Remember that phrase that they used a number of years ago? Was that under when Bill Clinton was running for president? It's the economy, stupid. The economy is
James Carville
driving.
came up.
James Carville, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people considered him a radical, like Mamdani. They considered him like way off the deep end. But we're talking about issues that are being driven by a bad economy. That's what hurts us. It's hurting our country. It's hurting our politics. And you're right. We will survive this, I hope. But we were this close to the Civil War. It could have gone the other way in the 1860s. That we could have had a divided nation had it not been for the fact that we won some major battles. They took out Abe Lincoln. Our president was killed, and it was all over slavery, not the economy at the time. But it also had to do with the economy.
There were people that advocated at the time, let the southern states succeed from the Union. Let them be a country by themselves. We don't need them. We don't want them. We'll
Right,
have a North America and a South America on the U.S. continent over here.
right,
I mean, that was a terrible position to take, but many people did take that position. Thankfully, we had a guy like Abraham Lincoln who was wise enough to realize that we had to keep this nation together.
right. I asked earlier, where is the Joseph McCarthy driving this? Who is the Joseph McCarthy driving this divide that we had? And now I want to ask, where is the Dwight D. Eisenhower that helped bring the country together after World War II? Our Harry Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and JFK, John F. Kennedy. We don't have those personalities that are I don't see one yet. Maybe we will see one after these elections. But I think that's what we're missing, aren't we? Somebody that can bring the country together. And it just the sadness is this coincidence that it's the 250th anniversary of America when we all should be together. But unfortunately, the politics, the economy, the problems, the lack of leadership is keeping us apart.
I, I look forward to the day when a president is a Republican and the Speaker of the House is a Democrat. And after 5 o'clock, they can sit down, have a drink together,
Right.
and talk as friends who are interested in doing what is best for the country. We had that once upon a time with Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. I'm
Right.
sure we had it many other times over the course of the years, but we haven't had it in a long time. And we have to get back to something like that.
Bill, I think we're out of time, and I think you're right that we're talking about, instead of being Democrats and Republicans, independents and progressives and conservatives and hardliners. As you pointed out earlier, we should be Americans. We should come
Right.
together after the political fight as Americans and recognize each other as Americans. And for some reason, we're not doing that. The two sides don't see each other as Americans anymore. And I think, thank goodness for all these other wars that are going around in the world, because if there were no other wars, all the people that hate us in these foreign countries would be looking at us as easy prey. Any final comments, Bill, from you at all?
Happy 4th of July. Say a prayer for this country. I think we can climb out of this morass that we're in as soon as we get some new leadership in Washington, leadership by Americans. Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th of July. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will talk to you again soon.